I am live again. I am live again. It almost sounds like I'm saying, I'm alive again. I was never dead unless you count last night when I passed out and went to sleep. There she is. I had to go out and come back in because I didn't see you in here. Come on in. All right, waiting for Akiena Lewis. So, like I was saying, she's an there she is.
Hello.
Hey, I was just getting ready to say, introduce you before you popped up on my screen.
Oh.
But from what I gather, you are a poet, an author, and an educator.
Mhm.
And I really wanted to get your name right so bad. And so, you know how when you really want to do something really bad, you might jinx yourself.
Yeah.
So, is it Ashway?
Ashway. Yeah.
Ashway,
Yeah. Ashway. Yeah.
yeah. And your tag on Instagram is Akiana
I'm
Lewis.
Akiena Lewis.
Akiena Lewis.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my name is Akiena Lewis, and then Ashway is my poet name. So that's what a lot of my writing in my poetry collection, or like whenever I do my spoken word, I feel like I take on a whole different aura. So that person that I tap into is Ashway.
Oh, that makes sense. That's like me. I like my stage name is Carmen Bliss, but my real name is Kara. But when I'm on stage and doing stuff like business stuff,
Hmm.
it's Carmen. It's Carmen Bliss.
You
A
got to
different person.
transform. So.
Transform. So yes, I have some questions for you. I like to keep Bliss Talk short and sweet, probably like 30 minutes of us chopping it up with each other. I like to ask questions where I can feel like I'll learn something from you.
Okay.
Uh, the first question is I went on your page and you spoke about being the light.
Hmm.
My purpose is to be the light.
Hmm.
And then you also said the word discovery. I love that word discovery.
Mm.
And I wanted you to talk about what discovery means to you.
Okay, that's a good question.
Mhm.
Basically, what discovery means to me, I think of discovery of kind of like a sense of play. Like going towards the unfamiliar to see what happens.
Mhm.
Discovery to me is like, evolving is discovery. Those phases of like change and just learning new information about myself, about life, from the books that I read. So when I talk about like discovery, it's just like, just introduction to new information, introduction to a part of me that I didn't know was there or that I haven't tapped into. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Right.
This is an aspect of who I am, and I'm just discovering that. So any type of new information to me is discovery.
It's like a synonym for enlightenment.
Exactly.
Ever something.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like I had a question and a question for you. I wanted to ask you what your definition of discovery was, but I also wanted to know what did it look like when you actually came across that perspective of discovery and the definition.
You said, what did it look like?
Yeah, yeah.
It looked like some hard prayers, some dark times. It looked kind of like depression.
Mm.
Yeah, so it just kind of, I really don't know exactly what it looked like. I just know what it feels like. And for me,
Mm.
I just feel that sense of, because there was a point in time at the age of 22 is when I really started to discover more of who I am, especially spiritually. And for
Mhm.
me, it wasn't even necessarily something I saw, it's just something I felt. Once I started to pray more and I started praying to God, like, God, please renew my spirit and like create me a pure, clean heart. When I
Mhm.
started, doing things of that nature is when I started to just feel different. You know, things that once interested me no longer interested me anymore. I felt a lot more courageous and a lot more brave to just step into who I am and to unlearn a lot of the things that I had to learn, that I learned growing up, in order to discover new things and new information to kind of formulate, you know, what resonates with me and who I am in my spirit, more than what I was told I should believe or how I should feel or what's right or what's wrong, you know?
Right. And when you think about discovery too, you think about, you know, people in history discovering new things. But my perspective is it might not even be just a new thing. It's just new for you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just touching your ears and just touching your eyes for the first time. You're like, oh, wow. Like,
yeah.
You know, this is new.
And that's exactly what I get when I talk to new people. Like, I literally, T. Walker, he has set up every day where I get to talk to someone new that I've never even met before, never even crossed paths before. Mm-hmm. But a lot of discovery happens.
Yeah.
It does. Mm-hmm. So you answered that question, like, really, really well.
Thank you.
I like that. Let's see. My insight thoughts are poetry. Mm-hmm. So, have you ever felt that those thoughts that you have would not be received by your audience?
I didn't. It's like, when I first came up with my inside thoughts of poetry, for one, it was a caption for a picture that I posted back in like 2016, to where I looked at the picture when I saw it. I was like, oh, my inside thoughts of poetry. Like, and then I like how it sounds so much that I wrote it down randomly in like my notebook, because I was going to actually create a poem out of it. But then when it came to the process of me, you know, writing my book, I'm like, what is the name of my book going to be? What is the name of my book going to be? And then divinely, the first page of the entire document, it said my inside thoughts of poetry. And I looked at it, I said, that is the title of my book. So my inside thoughts of poetry, to me, is creative expression. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think about, for one, I didn't even think about an audience when I created my poetry collection. It was something that was more so for me. I knew I always wanted to write a book, and I'm like, yo, my inside thoughts of poetry, and I had a lot of poems. I had a collection of a lot of different poems that I had from me studying poetry in undergrad. Mm-hmm. So honestly, to answer your question, I didn't think about, you know, how other people would feel about my thoughts. I didn't think about who my audience was or who exactly my thoughts were speaking to. I just know that my thoughts were coming from me and my experiences. And that's what was more important to me, just kind of sharing. And I knew in that someone out here could possibly relate and understand.
Right. When I read that on your page today, I thought of it as an affirmation, because I have, like, sometimes I go and I have these thoughts and I'm like, yo, that's a bar.
I need exactly. Like, yeah, that's fire. I do that all the time.
Yes. So I need to jot that down. It's just like, I have these collections of little thoughts in my phone, like just random collections, and sometimes it's not a poem or anything. It's just little thoughts that I've had.
Verse, you're like, yo, that sounds. My collection is literally, some of those are legit verses, random thoughts, and I'm like, that is fire. Like, so your inside thoughts of poetry too.
Yes. Yeah. The reason why I had asked you if you ever, you know, maybe thought that the audience wouldn't receive them, because sometimes I do have those, like, feelings that maybe these thoughts are not meant to be shared. Maybe these are my thoughts. They shouldn't leave this. They shouldn't leave this phone or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think it's interesting that you don't have an audience in mind at all. You go with it, which is really good.
I mean, I might have filtered a lot of things because I knew like my mother would read it, or like my family, and I also did filter some things based off of what, you know, like my image is and like how I want people to receive me, especially with me being an educator and a teacher. So there were certain things I definitely had to be mindful of when it came to my collection. But as far as like, because there's a lot of my writing that didn't make it because I'm like, no, that's a little too much. I ain't gonna put that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I did go through the process of like shuffling and knowing what not to put solely based off of, you know, my image and how I wanted people to receive me and certain things that I don't want people. I'm like, it's a little too soon for me to be putting all that in there. So I was definitely mindful, but as far as the process of like creating and getting everything out and writing, I didn't.
I think that's awesome. I'm glad you said that though, because there is a balance between that. Those thoughts that maybe you should.
Yeah, you know, you'd be like,
you can still have it. Yeah, in my opinion, you can still have those thoughts in the chamber. Like you could just pop out with it. You know.
Exactly. Yeah. I did go through that. There's a lot of stuff that, you know, was in like one of the versions of my poetry collection that did not make it to the final because it just didn't make the cut. And I'm like, nah, I'm gonna take that out.
Mm-hmm. That's what's up. I'm glad we touched on that. For those of y'all who just joined in, I appreciate you joining the Bliss Talk with us. I have Ashway.
Yeah, Ashway. Right. It's like it's Ashway, like it's AJJ Ashway. Oh, I gotta tell you about the name Ashway too. Like,
oh yes. So real quick, for those of y'all who joined in on Bliss Talk, I got Ashway with us. She's an author, an educator, and a poet, and we've been talking about the meaning of discovery. And we also just touched on my thoughts are poetry, and how do we think these thoughts are going to be received? Do we have an audience in mind? And we talked about the balance of what should be performed or put out there, and then maybe having those thoughts that you're not ready to release yet. Have it in the chamber. You just might
save it for later.
Yeah, save it for later. I'm on my third question with Miss Ashway. Describe your style and how is it different?
Style as far as like writing style, or like style like fashion, or?
So I want us to start with fashion, and then I want to see how that connects with your writing style.
Okay, fashion wise, honestly, my style since living in New York, my style has changed tremendously. Mm-hmm. Have a lot more style than I had in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Because I would say my style, from what I receive from other people, my style is extremely like 90s era. I wear a lot of mom jeans, baggy pants, sweaters, like crop top, honestly, if I could describe my style in a show, it would be a different world. That's one of my favorite shows. But my style is a different world style. Like Lena, Jada's character, her style, is my style. And also, like, I get a lot of Denise Huxtable style. Like, a lot of my style is extremely 90s era, classic 90s style. So, yeah.
I love your style. I was on your page. I'm like, oh, she cute.
Yeah, I don't like, as a woman, surprise, I don't like tight clothes. Like my pants, for me to be comfortable, I love saggy. Like I need some breathing room. It's very rare to catch me in like skin tight pants because those are not comfortable for me.
Right.
I love my baggy. I feel my sexiest when I got on like a big t-shirt and some nice unfitted jeans, and I'm like, oh, I'm out here. Real time. I could be my style's a little tomboyish too. I like sneakers, champion hoodies, sweatsuits, and things of that nature.
That's dope. What about your hair? Your hair looks flawless in every picture that I've seen. I'm like, does she do her own hair? Where she be coming up with these styles? She on the
If you've seen anything to where my hair was like snatched, like you could see my scalp like parted like the Red Sea, definitely got it professionally done. But like little hairstyles like this, I mean, it's old. I've had my hair like this for a couple weeks now, but for the most part, I retwist and do my own hair because my loctician is in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's this lady that I go to, and she is a holistic hairstylist. So like even when it comes to her retwisting my hair, she doesn't use anything but water. And so I'm not able to see her as often as I would like to, since she is in North Carolina. So when
Mm-hmm.
I'm in New York, because out here I would pay half as much as I would pay twice as much as I would pay in North Carolina. So it's very rare that I get my hair done in New York because they aren't my lady. You know, you got that one set hair lady. You like, you're the only person that can touch my hair.
Right.
For the most part, when I'm out here, you know, I just do what I can. You know, hop on those lock tutorials, and I've actually been doing my hair. It's going on 4 years that I've been locked. So since I first locked my hair, I've always been the type to just want to learn how to do my hair myself.
Gotcha.
So over time, I've gotten better, but
it looks great. It looks phenomenal.
Thank you.
I came up with what I thought your style looked like to me from my perspective.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think that your style is chill yet chic, and it's giving me African goddess.
Okay, thank you.
Do you agree? I
agree. I agree 100%. Yep, African goddess, all that.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about how that style, do you think it connects at all with your poetry? And how does it connect? What will be the bridging word for that puts it together?
I feel like it connects with my poetry in the sense of like hip hop. Because a lot of my poems have a rhyme scheme. Like they have some type of rhyme to them, to where it's like, oh, okay, I see that was lucky a rap, you know. And so I feel like you know, a lot of my style is my style is hip hop. I feel that's why I feel like that 90s era. Well, it just depends, because on a day-to-day basis I'm dressed like 90s chill, but in some of my projects and a lot of my pictures on Instagram, you get the goddess, you know, African, yeah, you know, and I incorporate that too. But I would just say just kind of like hip-hop, like, you know, it just style is it's like there's so much to play with when it comes to style, because sometimes I'll do something that isn't necessarily my style, but I try to pull it off anyway, like let me see what I can do with this. So I don't know if that answers the question.
It does. You said it's like a hip hop, it's like a more of a 90s feel, and then when you said it rhymed, I was like, oh, that's a bar. My fashion style rhymes, like what?
Yeah, like a lot of people that see me over be like, yo, they think I do music. Like, yo, you do music? I always get Lauryn Hill. Like, people like, yo, you give me, I could be anywhere. I had this brother come to me one time, he was like, Lauren. And I was like, stop playing.
Right, that's such a compliment. It just be throwing you off when people say that. Because I had my hair in, I do like these faux locks in my hair often. I'll put my hair in that because it's so easy to manage. It's so easy to do. It takes me like 2.5 hours to put in or whatever. And somebody, after I got off stage, because I'm a singer-songwriter, they was like, you were giving me Lauryn Hill vibes. And I was like, me?
Right. You were like, stop it.
Stop. But yes. Let's see, what else do I have for you? You answered that question. Great. You're 3 for 3 right now. My fourth question is, do you write to connect with people, or do you just write for therapy?
I would definitely say for therapy. I feel like I feel like for a lot of writers, I don't know who some of your favorite writers are, but when it comes to, you know, reading your favorite writers, is like, even for them it's therapy, but for you it's therapy as well, because you're like, oh wow, they experienced that, I experienced that same thing. Like, I feel like writing from a place of therapy is how you are able to connect with people, because you're opening up that portal of connection so that it's able to resonate with them through just being vulnerable and being telling your authentic truths.
I love that you put it that way. Oh my gosh, it's opening a portal to connect. I love that, because I think that sometimes we, as a singer-songwriter or entertainer, period, you think you have to have the next hit. You think you have to have what's going to make everybody shout after you finish performing it. You know what I mean? And that's that's not authentic. You know what I mean? So I don't see how you can connect by having that type of frequency where you're thinking about, the perception or um, what that audience is going to feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like to me, that's kind of like the difference between an artist and an entertainer. Because in my definition of an artist is someone who creates from authenticity, someone who's able to connect and creates from their truths, versus someone who creates for clout or someone who just does it to entertain.
Absolutely.
So I'm an artist. I'm not an entertainer. I'm not here to entertain nobody. Unless, because I do acting too. So unless you see me in a movie on a movie screen, then, that's the only source of entertainment you're going to get from me, because that is a craft and that is an art form that I am mastering. And that's the reason why I originally actually moved to New York is for my acting. But it's just the fact that, it's not my only gift. Right. I'm a writer too, so.
Right. That's I'm glad that you said that, because also this person that you identify with, this outside character, like you have Ashway and I have Carmen Bliss, and we often think that, or people perceive that we just monolithic and we just do this one thing. You know what I mean? But the truth of the pen is that sometimes you get tired of being that person. Like, I'm so tired of Carmen Bliss sometimes. Like,
yeah. So what inspired the name Carmen Bliss?
Okay, so I came up with this name when I was like 16 or 17 years old, and so we were trying to get something that was close to my name. My birth name is Kara, and so we got Carmen from that. Don't ask me how we got Carmen from Kara.
I love the name Carmen. It's a beautiful name.
Yes, and then Bliss, it was just like it hit. Like, it's just like put those together, Carmen Bliss. But later, we found out that Carmen means Lady of Song, and Bliss means euphoric. Like, you know what I mean? So I was like, huh. And the crazy thing was, I didn't mean for it to happen that way. But that's what the name means.
That was divine.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was. But like I was saying, sometimes I get tired of her. And sometimes I need a break from her. You know what I mean? But I love her. Sometimes you need your space.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm glad you brought up multifacetedness. Not just doing one thing. You do a couple of things.
Yeah, honestly, that's something I learned from Will Smith. Like, he had an interview, he was saying how, choose one thing to master, but then at the same time, also perfect and work on other things as well.
Right.
So honestly, I feel like I'm mastering more than one thing at the same time too, because it's like all of these, like being an actor, being a poet, being an author, are all aspects of what make me, So.
Absolutely. I was talking to T Walker and I asked him, why do you do so many things at one time? Because I was like, what do you got going on right now? Like, name like 10 things.
Yeah, he's a busy man.
And I was like, so what keeps you doing all these things? He was like, it's just like shooting your shots in different places. I might miss this shot, but here go, boom, this shot, it's in there. You know what I mean? I was like, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. So I got one final question for you. I want you to talk about your journey to publishing your work.
Okay. Well, for me, my journey was, I mentioned prior, is I studied poetry in undergrad. So I took poetry classes. In my poetry classes, I had like 3 different portfolios that I had a body of work in. And one day, one of my line sisters, I was chilling with her, and she was like, yo, sis, like, you have all this writing. She was like, go ahead and write your book. She was like, why are you playing? Like, you cannot sit on all this work. Like, you can't let your art die like that. And it's like, writing a book is something that I always knew that I wanted to do, but in my mind, kind of like even with locking my hair, I told myself I'm gonna lock my hair when I'm 30. And I'm like, what am I waiting for? Like, it's like we give ourselves that future date, but it's like, but why not today though?
Right.
So in that moment, you know how sometimes you can hear something, but then it takes that one person to say it to stick in your mind. So for her saying that, it automatically locked into my spirit. And I was like, you're right. So that night I went home and I started my collection. So what I did was I went through and looked at all of the work that I had, all of my writings that I had. So, and then this is also kind of like how I became an editor too, because I edited my book myself, and I learned how to do it from workshopping my poems in my poetry classes. So, and workshopping other people's poems, which is funny because now I also do writing workshops as well. So it's just funny how the universe will put you, you know, like the early steps of your purpose, and then later on you're like, that's why I did that.
Yeah.
So I just started going through all of my poems, shuffling through, seeing what I, you know, saw value in, kind of throwing the other ones to the side, sorted all the way through them. In the midst of that, I transitioned and moved to New York. So I had, my whole life had changed, but I still had these poems. And so I went through and I just chose the ones that I saw potential in, and I typed them all up in a document. And I edited them, changed them, added to them, switched them around, you know. And I also had in the process, I was also doing a lot of new writing about my new experiences. So I would take those poems, put them in the document as well, you know, and I continue just writing and editing and organizing in order for me to like figure out, you know, for me, the hardest part was figuring out how I wanted my book to read. I'm like, dang, because you know that's kind of like cadence and a flow. Like it gotta have that it has to have a flow. So I literally printed out all of my poems, which is like over 100 and something pages. It literally took up my entire room.
Right.
And I spreaded all the poems out, which I shouldn't did because it kind of gave me anxiety. I'm like, oh my god, this is a lot. It actually wasn't that helpful because it literally gave me anxiety. But I spreaded all the papers out like across my room on my floor, and I just went through and like put them in, like sorted them in an order, like different packets and things of that nature. And the platform that I use, I self-published, and the platform that I used was Kindle Direct Publishing, which is a platform through Amazon, and it allows you to be able to sell your book on Amazon. So I went through the process of like learning how to utilize Kindle Direct Publishing and how to take my documents and translate them into that specific platform in order to be able to publish and have a collection.
So you might have said this, but how did you figure out how to get it on the Kindle Kindle Publishing?
Yeah, honestly, I literally just went because I never done it before, and no one around me ever did it before either. So I literally just learned as I went. So even when I said that I was going to create a book, I didn't know how to, or I didn't know what to do, or I just knew I was going to have a book. So it's like the more that I, you know, kind of put my intentions into the fact, like, okay, I'm about to create a book, even though I don't know how to. Once you get on a platform, it basically walks you through how to do it. Like about uploading your files, and if something doesn't fit, like it literally walks you through those different phases and steps. It's not easy. There was a lot of trial and error. A lot of redoing because I did something wrong and I would have to go back and redo it over and over. A lot of repetition, but that specific platform is the only platform that I can speak for because it's what I use. But it literally it walks you through of how to do it, and you learn as you go. Well, I learned as I went.
That's awesome. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm very proud of you. You just pretty much summed up that key. It's like a Martin Luther King quote. Like all you have to do, you don't have to see the entire staircase in order to take the first step.
Exactly.
And your first step was you had the thought that you wanted to do it, and then you just took action from there. Not even know what you was doing.
No, never wrote a book before. Didn't know nothing about nothing, but I was like, hey, I'm doing it. I'm here. And then it came into fruition. I did it. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
So we're wrapping this thing up. I want you to give them your social media information, and while she's giving you guys social media information, whoever's still in the push talk, you can type a question down there, and because we'd like to answer at least one question before we leave out of here.
Website. Oh, that's what I wanted to tell you about my name.
Yes.
So, real fast. So, I put my IG. Akiena Lewis is basically on my Facebook, IG, everything. And then my website, akienalewis.com. But the name Ajwe. So, I'm Haitian. And you know how Erykah Badu always talks about how she's a woman of many names, and she be naming all her names. And it's like, dang, like, I need some names. So, I have multiple names myself, you know. And so I'm Haitian. So one thing that I realized, my name is Akiena, is African. And I've also given myself like an African, like tribal name, but I'm like, I need a Haitian name to, you know, just pay homage to my heritage. So I'm a Pisces, and I was looking into like different type of Haitian Caribbean name that I feel will work best for me. And so I came across Ajwe, and Ajwe means spirit of the sea. So it automatically resonated, and I was like, that's me right there. And so I gave myself the name Ajwe, and I use it as my poet name, because I feel like a lot of my writing is like my collection reflects like a water essence. It's like water. You're like, oh wow, soothing like water. I feel like sometimes even my voice is soothing, like the sound of the ocean. So Ajwe was the name that resonated the most with me. So it's like, it's the Haitian name that I gave myself to identify myself and to pay homage to my Haitian heritage.
That fits you. It definitely fits you. You know what? You brought up Erykah Badu, and I meant to say something back when we were talking about, you know, performing because you're inspired rather than performing to, you know, gain a following or to entertain. When we're on that topic, Erykah Badu, she said that she took her 5 years to put out another album, and I love the way that she put it. Like, she said the reason why it took so long is because I don't believe that art should be rushed. It comes from experiences. So if you're putting out music back to back to back, obviously you're getting somebody to write for you. You're not doing it yourself. These are not your own experiences, so to speak. And so I thought it was really dope the way she tuned into that and spoke on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's one thing I admire about Erykah Badu, and I also really admire that about Solange. I love Solange's creation process. She literally will drop a whole body of work. I think it took her 7 or 8 years to do A Seat at the Table. And then it's like Solange will she takes her time, and she literally gives herself the solitude that she needs in order to create. And that's one thing that I admire about certain creators are the ones that are able to remove themselves in order to really dig into themselves, in order to really create a sustainable, you know, enlightened piece of work, body of work, you know, in order to share with people. So yeah, 100% Erykah Badu.
Yes. Well, this has been dope. Let's
Thank you. Nice to meet you. It's our first time meeting. I didn't know what to expect, but I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
This has been cool. I'm gonna get my information out. You can find me @Bliss_pics on Instagram. I have a website. It's called blisstalkshow.life. This episode, along with some other episodes I still need to upload, will be on the website. And there's a lot from last year and a couple of lives that I've done already that are on the website as well, if you guys want to check that out. And then I have some lives in my IGTV as well, so you guys can catch up on it. I mean, I've learned a lot from all the people that I've talked to, and today I learned a lot from you, and it was good to chop it up with you about some things, you know, that sometimes it's like you don't want to stay in the echo chamber, but it's good to hear other people, you know, validate some of these things that you've been thinking, you know. So dope stuff.
And before we go, I want to let you know I love your necklace. That is it like a?
Oh, thank you.
It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Actually, my significant other just ordered me a necklace like that. So yeah.
Oh yes. You know what? The reason why I have this necklace is because I saw someone else with this necklace, and I was like, "Yo,
is it something like Nilam? Do you know who Nilam is?" Oh, this is this rapper. Her name is Nilam. I would recommend. She's a Muslim rapper, part of the nation. She's really cool with. There's a brother named 19 Keys, very near PA. But she literally has wears the same style of necklaces from a jewelry line. So it could be the same line that she probably gets hers from, possibly.
It could be. But like I said, this was dope. You have an awesome weekend. And
Thank you. Much love, Queen. Take care.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Peace.
Bye.